coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What's happening, people? We are back in the building. Guys, please make sure you do smash that like and share and subscribe to the damn channel. Guys, we're back. We're back, and today we're taking a look at my 10 favorite midfielders. Of course, we've done goalkeepers, we've done defenders. A lot of nostalgia, of course, as I mentioned, before in previous videos. A lot of players in there, that I ain't seen play for a very, very long time. Some good players, some not so great players, but of course you remember them for so many various different reasons. Guys, as per usual, make sure you drop your 10 favorite players in the comment section below. I love reading some of the comments that I do get in terms of some of the players that you did like over the years and things like that. So keep the comments coming, and much appreciation for that. So today we're looking at the midfield section. There's been a lot of midfielders. There's actually been a lot of midfielders. So to pick 10, this one was probably the most difficult one, if I'm being 100% honest. This one was the most difficult. So, I tried my best. I was sitting there for a long time trying to figure it out. But without further ado, let me show you guys my 10 favorite midfielders. And we'll start off with number 1. This one's going to be a good one. Paul Pogba. Now, some of you probably sitting there thinking, but he played for Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? How can you? Paul Pogba, one of the most talented players that I've ever seen play a game of football. Absolutely fantastic player. Won the World Cup, of course, with France. Was really good in that tournament. And I remember watching Pogba playing for Manchester United, before he, of course, moved for free to Juventus. And I remember at that period of time watching him in one of the youth tournaments for France. And I remember just watching him and thinking, this guy is light years ahead of all of the other players. He looked bigger, he looked more mature, like he just looked like an actual, professional first team player, as opposed to the players that he was playing against in that tournament, which France obviously went on to win, and he was captain. I remember just watching thinking, they can't even get near him. It looked so easy for him as well. He just looked so easy. And then watching him, I saw in the Manchester United youth games and things like that. Again, it just looked like it was him and Ravel Morrison, to be fair. They were two players that I always looked at and thought, yeah, it's too easy for these guys. Way too easy. They ball at their feet. It's just simple to them. It's just simple. And then, of course, all the talk about him leaving Manchester United at the beginning. I'm assuming, and I don't really know the ins and outs, but I guess he just wanted a more prominent role. And at the time, they just couldn't really offer him that. And it was more about the development. But, as the years went by, they ended up signing him back, for 90 odd million or whatever it was, years later. But during that period at Juventus, he was one of the best midfielders in the world at the time, in my personal opinion. His stock was extremely high. He was a fantastic player, scoring, wonderful goals, being that midfield kind of, I don't want to say dynamic midfielder, but he just seemed to have everything. We look at Yaya Toure and stuff like that, and the way we talk about Yaya Toure, especially in the Premier League, for Manchester City. But when we look at Paul Pogba, for me, he was exactly the same at Juventus, obviously. And I think if he had been able to continue along that kind of trajectory, we'd be talking easily about one of the best midfielders of the last at least 30 years. At least, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that part is quite simple. But of course, went to Manchester United, and we all know with Manchester United now, with everything that's kind of gone on there and all the things that have happened, in the last, since Fergie left. So what's that, 10 years, 11 years, or whatever it is, we've just seen the decline of Manchester United as a club, but then also some of the players who have gone there just have not been able to really excel there. It doesn't seem like the greatest environment. And Paul Pogba was another one of those kind of players. No matter what you want to say about Paul Pogba, he's definitely too talented. Now, of course, everything that's kind of gone on since he, joined back up, with Juventus, it is what it is. But if we're talking, the player himself, nah, this was a really really good player, man. So definitely one of my favorite players ever to watch, in the especially in the last like 20 25 years. So I felt like he deserved the place, on this list. Let's move on to the next one. Spoke about him already. Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure. This guy was, the thing is, I feel like with Yaya Toure, the way that we don't necessarily speak about him in the same kind of light at times, I'm always like, Yaya Toure, what, this guy? Nah, man, you have to speak with the utmost respect when you're speaking about someone like Yaya Toure, like you actually have to, because when you look at it, this guy at Barcelona under Pep Guardiola, of course, things didn't really work out, so to speak, in the end, but playing centre back, played defensive midfield, moves to Manchester City, then becomes this kind of just dominant midfielder who can score goals, who can make lung busting runs in, and again, just like Paul Pogba, in my opinion, could do everything, but he was doing everything, to such a high degree, but at such consistency that it just makes it difficult to leave him off of these kind of lists. And the type of player that he was, you're not going to find many of those kind of players. For me, he was like all of the midfielders that we always talk about, the Lampards, the Gerrards, the Vieiras, and stuff like that. I felt like he had all of that in one. I'll be honest with you, he felt like that type of player. Now, the difference, I guess, between those players and him is just the longevity. Isn't they done it for God knows however many in years, but I mean, in to be fair, he did do it for quite a few years. I can't even discredit him, but he could do everything. He could literally do everything. He could run a midfield on his own just by just by his sheer presence. And that was the easiest thing. Big, big, strong midfielder. You're not getting the ball off him. I can't remember a time when anyone took the ball off of this guy. If he didn't want you to have that ball, you weren't having it. He would bulldoze, through midfields. I remember looking at that Manchester City midfield that he was in and just thinking, yeah, you're like, how are you getting past this midfield? And you know what? Forget even getting past the midfield. When they have the ball, on top of obviously the way that they play anyway, when they get the ball, it's long for you guys. It's actually long for you guys. And of course, integral to Manchester City and, their kind of success and, their foundations and things like that, moving forward, being able to, first of all, get a player like Yaya Toure, first of all, that was a big coup. But to be able to, benefit from everything that he then done moving forward, amazing play. We remember the, 2013-14 season, that Yaya Toure had all the goals that he scored, some of the spectacular goals that he scored. He had that in his locker. And there's not many midfielders who can finish the way that he can finish. In fact, there's not many strikers who can finish the way that, Yaya Toure did finish. So, he had that. And being a midfielder, cool, he had that. Tackles, he can do that. I wouldn't say that was his best trait, of course, but in a general sense, he could do that. No worries. Do you know what I mean? Win a game, he can do that. He had that mentality. He had that gene in him where you need someone to get you the win. He can do that for you. Whether it's scoring a goal, whether it's making that lung busting run, whether it's just running the midfield and then popping it off to like an Aguero at the time, he could do that. He had everything. He was such a complete midfielder. One of the best I've ever seen. One of the best I've ever seen, man. Let's move on to the next midfielder. Let's go to... Let's save those two. Let's go to this one. Michael Essien, fellow Ghanaian, man. Really, 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 really good midfielder. Of course, mostly, throughout his time at Chelsea. Then, of course, moved on to Real Madrid and then, moved on to, I think, another club. I want to say a club in Turkey, but I can't fully remember. But, again, another fantastic midfielder. Again, was so integral to that Chelsea team. Under Jose Mourinho, playing alongside the likes of Frank Lampard and stuff like that, Didier Drogba and all, John Terry, etc., etc. He was just a midfield force, and he just did things simple. I'll be honest with you, he wasn't like an overly flashy player or anything like that. He wasn't a guy that you looked at and thought, oh my goodness, in terms of the type of player he was, he didn't need to have that, oh, I'm going to win a game for you guys, type of thing. For me, it was just purely all about the presence of someone like him. And again, for Ghana, integral. He was the beacon. Forget the attacking players. Of course, you had the Asamoah Gyan's and things like that, Andre Ayew, Jordan Ayew, whatever. Cool, you have those players. But in the midfield, alongside the likes of, Sully Montari, Appiah. When we're looking at someone like Michael Essien, he was the guy. Like, he was just the guy for Ghana anyway, in my personal opinion. A lot of hopes were placed on him, alongside someone like an Asamoah Gyan. But for Chelsea, I just love the way they played. Just love the way they played the game. Always had a smile on his face. Just seemed happy, all the time. Like a really, really good player, man. Really, really dominant midfielder. His honor list, it's very, very silly. It's very, very silly. He's a top professional, and I think he kind of deserves, all the accolades, all the adulation, and all that praise and stuff like that. He deserves all of it. One of my favorite midfielders to definitely watch. Next up, we have got Patrick Vieira. Patrick Vieira, old school. He was probably like, if I'm talking about Pogba, if I'm talking about Yaya Toure, if I'm talking about Michael Essien, I have to include Patrick Vieira. He's the way he walked so they could run. I'll be honest with you. Whether we were going to say that, whether you think that they're better than him, that remains to be seen. I still think probably not. Yaya Toure will probably be the only one in terms of better. But forget all of that anyway. When we're talking about a dominant midfielder coming over to England and just being this presence again, and a lot of these midfielders, it was about their sheer presence on the pitch, in terms of their dominating, playing style and stuff like that. He had that. Now, he wasn't a goal scorer. He's not someone who's going to get you 10, 15 goals a season just from the midfield. That's not, again, that he didn't need to anyway, because that wasn't really his game. But when he needed to run a midfield, he could run that midfield alongside, the battles that he had, alongside Roy Keane, over the years of Manchester United and Arsenal. He could go toe to toe with Keane, and not many people could say that at that time. Not many people could say that, at that period of time, being able to go toe to toe with, one of the best players in the Premier League in Roy Keane, at that period of time. So the fact that he was able to do that, for me, speaks volumes. Again, accolades, part of the Invincible team. Won trophies at Arsenal, moved, of course, over to Inter Milan. He played for Manchester City as well, which is quite funny. Top player, international honors. Like, this guy, Vieira, was just, when I used to watch Arsenal back in the day, I just used to think, nah, man, this guy is just, if you were young at the period, at that moment in time, and for those like few years, getting into football, playing football, and you needed to look at a midfielder in the Premier League anyway, he was definitely one I would always say, yeah, you got to look at Patrick Vieira. Try and model your game on something like that. As difficult as that might be, just try and model your game, on something potentially like that. But again, that's almost impossible, because again, you are talking about one of the legends of the Premier League in Patrick Vieira, and again, as I mentioned, he walked so a lot of these guys could run. There has to be an originator to all of these things. For me, he was that one. Without him, we don't talk about, the Yaya Toures and stuff like that in the same light, because they would have come a lot later. He's the one that, if you then put him into these players, a lot of these players' era in his prime, or during his prime years, I still think he stands head and shoulders above, a lot of these kind of guys. So top player. Again, another player who deserved everything that he kind of got, both, domestically and internationally. And very much enjoyed watching him. But let's move on to the next one up, Patrick Berger. Now, as I mentioned before, if you watch my previous videos, I did talk about, when it comes to the midfield players, I am including players who played left midfield, right midfield, of course, because we've got wingers and stuff like that. And we've got that show coming up very, very soon, or coming up next, should I say. So I wanted to leave those players kind of separate. I wanted to really look at like midfielders, because, back in the day, they were midfielders. I get it. You could say some of them were playing a bit like wingers, but the reality is that that's not what it was. It was left midfield, right midfield, and you kind of played, really from there kind of thing. But Patrick Berger, he's actually the only Liverpool player on the list, because he is one of my favorite Liverpool players of all time. Again, the biasness, he's left-footed, so what? Sue me. But he's a top player. He was a top player, in my opinion, anyway, for Liverpool. Coming in at Liverpool, especially at the time, and again, I speak about we didn't have social media. There's no internet, so you don't know these players. You don't like. I don't know where you come from. I can't go do a scout report and go and check out your videos on Twitter or X or Instagram or TikTok and stuff. There is none of that. So when you're coming into the team, you're just coming into the team. You're a new signing. Everyone's talking about you. The manager's going to big you up as much as he can big you up, so to speak. Maybe within the football circles, they might know who you are in terms of where you're coming from and stuff like that. But ultimately, as fans, we're never going to know those kind of things. So you're just hoping that when this player plays, there's enough fanfare, to be able to, big him up and say, okay, cool, this is a really, really good player, or this is a underwhelming signing. And there was a lot around, Patrick Berger, at that time, from what I can remember. I was quite young when he signed for Liverpool, but when he was there, I thought he was such a really good player. For some weird reason, the kit I always remember him in is the green and black, or green and black kit, if you want to call it that, or green and blue, like navy blue, whatever you want to call it. But I always remember him in that kit. Like when I think of that kit, that Liverpool kit, and you guys know which one I'm talking about, I always think Patrick Berger. Maybe because of the goal against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Maybe because of that. I admit it, because that was like a moment in my, just has been imprinted in my brain. Maybe, but ultimately I thought top player. Really, really liked him. And yeah, it's kind of sad when he left. Kind of sad, when he left Liverpool. Again, another one of my left-footed homies, man. So we got to stick together. Speaking of left-footed homies, Rivaldo. Now people always ask again, when like how long you supported Barcelona and stuff like that. It's because of players like him, Mark Overmars and stuff like that. This is why I supported Barcelona. Again, biasness will always kick in purely because left-footed. So when I'm watching players around the world, and there's not many of us at the time anyway, it didn't feel like there was really many of us who were left-footed. When you're watching some of these guys, I'm like, yeah, I've got to, I've got to kind of, follow these guys, and I've got to, big them up as much as I possibly can, kind of thing, and see what they're like and see, why they're so good. Rivaldo, go through his honor list. I'll put it up on the screen, but go through his honor list. His honor list is ridiculous. He's won so many different things at so many different clubs. International, Brazil, one of I don't know how much, I don't even know what else I can say on Rivaldo, because he was just a top player. I think those remember his La Liga hat-trick for Barcelona. Mad. Played for Deportivo La Coruña, if I'm not mistaken. Like, this was a top player. Top player, man. Really enjoyed watching him. Could do the flair thing if he needed him to, but he could do the flair thing, in terms of like the tricks, the flicks, and all that kind of stuff, which was cool. But what I really liked about him was that he also had this kind of, how can I put it, like from what he had like what we see today, like what we see from the Brazilians, in my opinion, today, is that we're not seeing too much like the Brazilians today, like the Vinicius, the Martinellis and stuff like that, and Richarlisons and all these kind of players. You're seeing, in my opinion, a lot of European influence because they've been playing in these European leagues for such a long time, right? And we're not seeing too much samba. Rivaldo, obviously, coming from Palmeiras and stuff like that, and like being able to play in those kind of Brazil, Corinthians and stuff like that, being able to play in the early Brazil teams, or I say early Brazil teams, but the Brazil teams of like the early 2000s and stuff like that, with the Ronaldos, the Roberto Carlos's, like the Jesus Christ, I'm thinking about it now, the Ronaldinhos and stuff like that. When you're playing with all of these kind of players who are very samba based, and they're more or less they're bringing their culture into the European kind of world. He had a mixture of both, and I feel like he was able to mix and blend both of them really, really well. Of course, moved on to Olympiacos. He's played left mid, played attacking mid, up front, if you want to call it that. Like, he's played various different positions, but I would say mostly attacking mid. You could say left wing as well as another position, but I put him in the attacking mid kind of, into that midfielder kind of role, because that's the position, from what I saw anyway, is that he's played the most is in attacking midfield. So I said I'll throw him into the midfield area. If you want to put him as a winger and you remember him more as a winger, that's absolutely fair enough. He played quite a lot of games as a winger as well, but for me, I do remember him seeing him behind strike, especially for like a team like Brazil. But again, back in those days, you probably not even notice him. But if you went back and watched a lot of the football from back in the day, you'll see players were doing the floating thing. We feel like it's probably something that's only relatively new, like within the last 10, 15 years. Nah, man, these guys have been doing that. They've been floating left midfield. So, you want to swap over with the right midfielder or attacking midfield and, interchange and stuff like that. He's been doing that. Absolutely been doing that. Especially more so, I would say, where I would have put him into that, like attacking midfield is probably when like your Ronaldinho's are coming through, and Ronaldinho is now a prominent figure, because then he would be occupying, that left-hand side. So yeah, man, one of my favorite players, 100%. But let's move on to the next one. And next up, another old school left-footed player, and that is Pavel Nedved. Nedved, Juventus legend, absolutely Don Dada, won the Ballon d'Or as well. Top player. Now, obviously, there's a lot of controversy, behind him winning that Ballon d'Or, because a lot of people have felt at the time that maybe, there should have been other players. He won it in 2003, and then they might feel like there are other players who potentially should have won it. But me, I don't really care. I always thought Nedved was an amazing, absolutely amazing player. Even internationally, came runners-up in 1996 European Championships with the Czech Republic. Really top player. Juventus, of course, won so many things there. Lazio won things there as well. And that was always key for me as well, was that you're not just talking about, obviously, at Juventus, that's where his, he was more evolved at Juventus, so to speak. But even at Lazio, he was still doing bits. Won the Serie A with Lazio. He won the UEFA Super Cup with Lazio. UEFA Cup Winners' Cup with them. Coppa Italia, Super Coppa Italiana. He won a lot of things over there. Went down with Juventus when all of that madness was happening, to then win the Serie B and stuff like that. Listen, this guy, in my opinion, Czech legend. I don't know what the Czech Republic people would say, but for me, from looking at it, at some of their players, like Peter Cech and stuff like that, he is definitely one of them. Definitely one of them. Ballon d'Or winner. Like, come on, man. Like, he has to be. He has to be. Can play central midfield, left midfield. Top player, man. Top player. Really, really liked, his kind of style of play. He was like playing on that left midfield. He was just like a midfielder. And that's why when he kind of moved more central, like, it kind of made sense, because he was really good with the ball at his feet. And you don't really see that too much from wingers who then turn into like a central midfielder, so to speak. I don't feel like I see that often, because usually it's just, they might move inside potentially to like play up front or something like that, but then more time I feel like they just usually stay on the wing and they just kind of do their thing. It's rare that you'll get like a James Milner who used to be a winger but then moved into central midfield, and then so on and so forth. But he could really, really do that because he was very intelligent, very, very intelligent. So definitely a player that I've really, really liked over the years. Next up. Current player now, Kevin De Bruyne. You see KDB, yeah? Yeah, you see KDB. I don't care what no one says. I actually don't care what no one says. The people will throw as much hate as possible on someone like KD. And no, let me not even say hate. It'll be more criticism on someone like KDB. I don't even care, because he is one of the best midfielders I've ever seen in the Premier League. I don't care. You can argue with the wall if you want. That's up to you. But to me, one of the best midfielders I have ever seen in the Premier League. The thing is, why sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Well, and it seems to only really come like recently with KDB more so than anything, because during his kind of pomp with Manchester City, people weren't really saying all this stuff. But we laud the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold for his passing. We laud David Beckham for his passing. The likes of the Javis, the Perlos. We laud them. This brother could put it on a sixpence better than most of them. For me, he's like top 2 passers in the world. Easily. He put that ball on a sixpence for you. Go score. He can do that. Not saying that there's not other players who can do it. Modric probably could do it if you asked him to potentially do it, but that's not his game. So I'm only going to judge about what their actual game is. He can do that. Midfield presence. You see when KDB's on the pitch, it's problematic. Don't let the guy shoot from outside the box. You see with the way we talk about Steven Gerrard about shooting from outside the box. Don't do that with KDB, because I feel like KDB's he's better at shooting from outside the box than someone like Stevie G. I'll be honest, because the difference is that I always felt like with someone like a Gerrard, as good as he was from outside the box, let's not act like he didn't score screamers from outside the box. I felt like with KDB, it's almost like he looks for those. Whereas with Gerrard, I don't feel like he ever looked for it. It was just more, let me just try something. Or let me do it. I've got the ability to do it. Let me just, you know what I mean? Let me just try it, kind of thing. And again, not to throw shade on someone like Stevie G, because obviously he was an absolutely amazing player. But see, with KDB, it just feels different. It just feels like it's just always a dead cert almost. Yeah, he's gonna score from outside. From outside the box? Like he's gonna score. What do you mean he's gonna score from outside the box? Yeah, because he's that good. He's that precise. It's finishing from outside the box. And maybe he must practice on this, quite a lot. But his shooting from outside the box is as good as some people shooting from inside the box. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like that just seems like it was his game. Set piece, ability, and also, like I said, like he's actually a very good midfielder. He's actually a very good midfielder. Whether Pep used to ask him to, be a busybody, he could have, he did do that, for Manchester City a few years ago, more so than now. Now he's more of a floater. He likes to play more in that attacking third, but he still likes to pick up the ball from deep every now and again and spray a pass out. And dictate play. That's what he's really, really good at, dictating play. And I feel like teams are scared when he gets the ball, because when he gets the ball, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna play someone in. Like he's gonna, like, it's Haaland, Aguero, whoever it is, he's gonna play them in. You just know he's gonna play them in. You know what I mean? And I feel like Manchester City, you almost feel it when he's not there. Like the creativity about them, you just feel that he's not when he's not there. Yes, they've got other players who can do amazing things, Foden, Bernardo Silva, and stuff like that. But when he's not there, you just feel creativity. They have to work it now. They really have to work it. Whereas with him, you throw him in there, he can work it if you need to work it. But on the flip side of things, he can make magic happen, man. Make magic happen. Definitely one of my favorite midfielders of all time. So yeah, can't give him enough praise, man. Can't give him enough praise. All right, we're down to the final two. If you know me, you know who the final two are going to be. I honestly don't even think like it's going to be a surprise. I really should have put them both together, to be honest with you. You probably know who I'm talking about. And that's Iniesta, who is my favorite midfielder, by the way, of all time. Like, he's head and shoulders above anybody else, I think, in my personal opinion. Just my opinion. And Xavi. Now, like I said, I should have just put them both together. Batty and Bench, Beaver and Butthead, whatever you would have called them. Jack and Jill type, whatever. Absolutely amazing players. Like I said, Iniesta is my favorite midfielder anyway. He is number one for me. Like, just in terms of favorite midfielders of all time, Iniesta all the time. I don't even hesitate. People will say, "Oh, what about Zidane?" Yeah, I don't care about all of that. Zidane's not really my flavor. It's not really my stilo. Iniesta is my stilo. Do you know what I mean? And I think, again, that Barcelona period of dominance under Pep Guardiola really put him at the top of that for me. Because the things that I saw from Iniesta, oh my days, like it's. I just implore anybody who never really got to watch Iniesta, just go back and watch videos. Yeah, just go and watch the highlights if you can. Just watch them. Space invader, calm. The guy is like, however tall he is, yeah. He could get past players, and it looked. I don't know how to explain it. With Ronaldinho, yeah, right. With like Ronaldinho would like get past players with like skill and stuff like that, which looked amazing. Neymar, skill and stuff like that. That's their game, right? You see him, it's just dribbling ability. Like his close ball control, that has to be on 99. That has to be on 99 because you're not getting the ball unless he makes a loose touch, which is very rare in itself. You're not getting the ball. He knows how to get past players, and it just. I can't explain it. Like it just the way he used to dribble. I used to always sit there and think, bro, can't you just get when you think just get a foot in? You can't get a foot in because he's got the ball in such a position that it's like it's enticing you. Obviously, just because of the way he plays, but it's like it's enticing you to come on, try and get it then. But you can't get it. You actually can't get it. Like he was just a master at that. World Cup winning goal. Part of that Spain dominance is what. Like, yeah. Iniesta's Iniesta. That's all I'll say on him. Xavi, excellent player. Passer of a ball. This guy would, I can't remember what the actual number is. I'd have to double check. Scanning the pitch. Yeah. What's his name? Is it there's a superhero that I'm currently thinking of. I would say, is it like Deathlock? It might be Deathlock I'm thinking about. Deathlock. Deathlock. For those out there who watch all of this, like Marvel and stuff like that. See, when Deathlock locks onto you, yeah, more time. Yeah, that's it. See with Javi, that's what I always felt like. That's like now I'm thinking about it like that. He, as soon as he got his target, boom, that's it. He's getting the ball to you regardless. I don't care where the hell you think you are. I don't care what you think you're doing. He's getting the ball to you, and he's an excellent scanner of the pitch. So he knows all the time where to be, and smart, super smart. He's already 5 moves ahead of you. You see, while you're still huffing and yeah, he's already on his 6th move now, and he hasn't moved, and he hasn't even moved. He's probably just walked from like one position to the next, but because he's already thinking the 5th, 6th, 7th step, and you're still huffing and puffing to get to that first one, yeah, it's all long. That's why the relationship between Xavi and Iniesta was always so fantastic to watch, alongside Busquets as well, Messi and blah blah blah. But those two, the relationship that they had in the middle of the park, dumb. And then seeing Iniesta moving out to like left wing at times, playing over there, dumb. Like guys playing like a proper winger, You know what I mean? Where he would sometimes winger slash inside or inverted winger, should I call it? Not even inside forward, but inverted winger, where the 1-2s and listen, man. Like I said, these two. Demon time. You don't want to come up against these guys. You're creating a team. I'm sorry, but my team has to have Javi and Iniesta, because I know you can have who you want. You can have all of these, these athletes and that. That's super calm, and these athletes are amazing players. Yaya Toure, Steven Gerrard, Vieira, Etienne, Makalele, all of these guys, amazing athletes. But you see all that running around stuff? Yeah, I don't need all of that. I don't feel that you need that to be a top footballer. I'll be so real. Ever since I've seen these two, and that's why that they've changed my mind on how I look at football. Obviously under Pep Guardiola, but they changed my mind about how I see the game now. I now know you do not need to be a massive, like, I'm not saying they weren't, by the way. Obviously they're top professionals, so I'm not saying that they're not. But if you ask like athlete in terms of if you had to create a player, or I need to create like the perfect midfielder, people will probably look or err on the side of like Steven Gerrard, for example, someone who could do everything, jack of all trades, master really of none, but jack of all trades, but doing it, of course, at a really, really high level. Yeah, you see all of that. I'm okay with that, because the reality is, if you can't get the ball, being an athlete is kind of pointless, right? It's actually so pointless. These guys will keep the ball. They'll keep the ball for fun. So yeah, man. Those two are my like 9 and 10, if you want to call it that. But we'll group them. We'll group these kind of guys together. Guys, that is my 10 favorite midfielders. That was actually pretty fun. Let me know your 10 in the comment section below. Let me know if you agree with any of my picks as well. And of course, we will be back. We've still got wingers to go through, and we have got strikers to go through. So make sure you guys stay tuned, stay blessed. I'm G out.